And I'll let you actually choose which one. So do you want to talk about OnlyFans and how sustainable it is, and how much sense it makes to you, or do you want to talk about? Actually, no, that's what we're going to talk about. That's going to be the last subject.
All right, well, let me ask you this. Let me ask you
Yeah.
this. Have you ever subscribed for an OnlyFans?
Fuck no. I've never paid for pornography, bro. I've
Thank
never
you.
I've,
Thank you.
I've
There's
never paid
free porn out there.
I've never paid for pornography. I've never slid a girl money to send me nudes or something like that. I'm like, if I'm gonna be spending money, I might as well just skip straight ahead, and either find a chick that will, saying bust it open for some dollars, or, or that I know, like, I can just buy, I'm saying, some trees or buy her some food or whatever, and that's enough to get in or whatever.
Right,
So,
right. So it just doesn't make sense to me when there's so much free porn out there.
yeah.
But I think it's the idea of it being somebody that you know
Hmm.
or somebody that you can talk to live. I think that is where the
Hmm.
thrill lies. Because I personally two comedian girls, and they both have OnlyFans. And one of she's a suicide girl, so she's been doing like online porn type shit. But she's had OnlyFans for a few years. Dude, I started seeing that, I was like, oh my god, like I I was intrigued, but I was like, dude, I'm not gonna fucking pay for this. Are you kidding
Yeah,
me? Like,
exactly. Kind of
first of
goofy
all,
ass
the
shit.
girlfriend leaves me.
Yeah, yeah.
But
And once again, like you said, we've come up, and it's like maybe maybe we don't have the most game or the most charisma. We're not the big dick swinging, super swagalicious, whatever. But the thing is, that's not even always, that may get your door in the foot or foot in the door, sometimes, but it doesn't always let you stay there. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you learn to compartmentalize and realize, okay, me being myself, there's just always going to be certain people who are never going to see me as a romantic interest, but I can at least enjoy their company in this respect or whatever, and then go to this other person who will bust it open or who will give me these other things. If this is something that men have, we have an issue with in general. Incel isn't even just about not getting pussy, because you can be getting pussy and still have an incel. It's more about a mentality about how you look at women and how you look at society, because you think that because you fulfill a certain checklist of duties or behaviors, that you are owed pussy. I
yeah,
was a
you deserve
I
it.
was I deserve it. I was a good guy. I did blah 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 blah. Women are able to compartmentalize and realize, okay, you know, if they want to, they can have a nigga that's gonna pay their bills. They have a nigga who's gonna dick them down. They have a nigga whom is just there to listen to their problems. You know what I'm saying? They have a nigga who takes them out for socializing. And hell, maybe they luck up and find that all in one nigga. Maybe it's two or three of them or whatever the fuck. And men, of course, do this shit too. But women are far more crafty because they learn at a younger age. They're conditioned at a younger age to learn to compartmentalize themselves and understand that, look, you are a full human being, but oftentimes you're going to be judged just for being a woman. And you're going to have expectations of you, blah, blah, blah. So learn to just shut out different parts of yourself. Guys, we don't grow up with those same restrictions. We kind of grow up more or less thinking that, like, you do this and you follow this protocol and you should get what you want, or you should get what you're quote unquote promised. And this naturally spills over into how we interact with, I mean, really all people. Men are toxic to other men in this way, but also romantically with women. Matter of fact, I was just talking to a woman I was dating a few years ago, because we're still cool and everything, and she was telling me about some of the other men that she's dated, and being like, yeah, you're much better than most of the other dudes I've dated, because like some dudes seem cool on the front end and then it didn't work out. And then one nigga tried to, he kicked my door down. Other niggas might get physically abusive or start harassing, you and shit. And it's just like, oh my, and these aren't like, and this isn't like, oh, these are ugly dudes who have no personality, no charm, no skills, nothing going on in life. But they still have that conditioning of, I did this, and that. I followed along this dialogue tree. I deserve this result at the end. And it's like, that's not the way it is. It's that we are not taught to compartmentalize ourselves as much and to be vulnerable about the fact that certain needs are being satisfied and not being satisfied. We're just more or less like, damn, I thought, like, if I do steps A, B, and C, that I get this.
I think a lot of it has to do with how society has brought us up. When I
Right.
think of just all of the movies that we watch, all of
Hmm.
the propaganda, video shows, just like everything that you've ingested culturally through media over your entire life has preconditioned you to believe that, if a man acts a certain way, a woman should act to reciprocate in a certain fashion. And
Yep.
some people, they take that so strongly to heart that when it doesn't happen that way, they're in such a shock, like such a state of disbelief that their expectations are not met, that they are thrown into a frenzy, and then they become these incels who, now are talking about like, let's fucking take what's ours, aka rape. You know
The
what I mean?
pussy.
Like, she had to
Finesse the
come in,
chooch. Finesse the
she was wearing that fucking dress.
we don't always. I think that is a systemic failure, a cultural failure, more so, with men. Is that we are not taught and we don't teach one another to compartmentalize ourselves, to be vulnerable, and express the ways in which we are feeling unsatisfied, and and then being able to separate our different desires and things that we want in the same way that women do. We oftentimes look for bundle packages. It's kind of like that joke of like women need 6 different, products for their hair, whereas men will use 6 in 1. You know what I'm saying? Shit to wash their car, wash their hair, and to wash their dishes. I think there is a grain of truth in that, in terms of like how men and women are conditioned to think and have expectations of one another. Even for these dudes who are, quote unquote pathetic or, losers. I don't even like that term because I feel like I was at the same point in my life and I had to develop a whole new set of skills and different experiences and go through a whole different set of humiliation in order to develop the charisma and confidence I have. You know what I'm saying? Just like you go through steps as like a performer and shit in the first couple of years, saying that nobody really talks about is you just basically fucking up and embarrassing yourself and not knowing what you're really.
Same thing.
So it's the same exact thing. But even the dudes who have all the swag and the people who have all this big personality, they didn't just become that overnight. It's like you go through shit and you get acclimated, you go through these experiences and stuff. And it's like when I think about my own life, think about all the sports teams you play, or think about the times you got pushed to play sports. Think about all the extracurricular activities, Boy Scouts and blah, blah, blah. It's like I just saw these things as, hanging out with friends or just doing interesting shit. But what I realized later down the road is that this was keeping me flexible to where I was able to engage with people from a multitude of backgrounds and a multitude of situations, and not always, when I meet a new person, just be at a loss for words, whatever the scenario is. And of course this plays into whatever your romantic interests happen to be. So in terms of like, these dudes who are resorting to this shit, first thing I would be like is, okay, if you just want the nudity and stuff, just go to Reddit or Twitter or just Google, whatever the fuck, right? And just accept the fact that
there's porn on Reddit. Really?
The nigga, there's yes. Well, I will say this, that as far as what's on Reddit, it isn't porn. It's more so, it isn't usually porn. It's more so pictures or gifs and videos, and oftentimes it's the women themselves. They just crop out their faces and shit, but it's their account, and they'll post saying their shit. And some of them do have OnlyFans or whatever, but they also post the shit on Reddit for free. So it's just to get their name out there. So
I think that sex should be treated a little bit more seriously than it is sometimes. Because you do, in some situations, I feel like you can transfer a piece of yourself to another person.
that's called an STI or STD.
No, I mean,
you're talking about like, spiritual STD.
Even if you don't believe in like the spirit or anything, you do believe in the mind, and it's hard to maintain. I don't know exactly what it is that it does to your mind, but it weakens it in a certain respect, as far as like.
That's syphilis.
Your ability to connect with somebody in a genuine way because of the.
Well, you think if you fuck too many random people, it makes it harder for you to get emotionally tied to a person because you've given too much of your self away to others?
Yeah, like that, and it's also just like Look, I don't want to be I don't want to be judgmental or anything, but I feel like it is possible that it is very immoral, and that
Well,
could
but why are you
destroy
unsure?
your ego. I don't know.
But why? Wait, hold on. Destroy your ego. I don't know if you're familiar with the phrase or the idea of ego death. But that's often sometimes that's purposefully seeked by people. I mean, I think I believe it's a thing in many religions, including like, well, ones that are more like secular religions, like Buddhism, that doesn't have like a deity. One of the things is about ego death, and this is also something achieved by taking psychedelics,
Yeah. I
which
was
is
actually watching a documentary on that the other day.
okay, hell yeah. So I would say that I think ego death is a good thing, and that
Okay, well then that's not what I meant.
okay, thing is,
Honestly, I think that prostitution, it serves its purpose, man. Because if there's
yes,
guys who can't get the rocks off, they got to go pay for sex. If those guys can't get sex, they might go hurt somebody. You know what I mean?
yes,
And
yes.
you don't want
If
those crazy motherfuckers running around with their dicks hard, and a gun in
no,
their hands. You're gonna pop off at the wrong end. Something's gonna pop, and you don't want that to happen. You know what I mean? So it's should have been around since before Jesus. All right, like this
yeah.
is this is the oldest profession in the book.
Ultimately, I have no problems with sex work. I have, to me, like the sex work is work, and I completely agree with that. If
It's
consent,
essential and it's been around for millennia.
exactly, if two consenting adults, if two or more consenting adults are deciding that, like, hey, I want to do, because the thing is, all relationships are based on this premise. I'm going to do this for you, and you do this for me. But for some reason, there's this like schism when it comes to like, oh, I'm going to give you sex and you give me some money. Then it's like, oh, then we have to get the government involved, and then we have to get like busybodies in society need to shame you and all. It's like it's like
It's a
I mean,
stigma.
it's a
Yeah,
stick, yeah.
I think
But I
that
don't.
there's I think that there's probably very likely and probably a documented correlation between some kind of past sexual trauma and present sexual proclivity. Like being a sex worker, a prostitute, or just like overly sexual active. Um, I think that like the younger you are exposed to sex, the more likely you are to seek it out in more unconventional environments.
Well,
Which
that's like I mean, that's kind of like what they say with weed though, right? Like it's a gateway and shit. It's almost like saying, oh, that blowjob was a gateway blowjob. Now you'll start blowing, anybody who asks, who asks you to. Like I said, I feel like we're the mental component, or we're like the mind and shit, because there are porn workers or sex workers whom have long-term partners. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, they realize that, they have this one part of them that can have sex for money, and there's a part of them that can have sex and just leave that where it is. And there's a part of them that can have sex with their partner and it'd be a completely different experience. And what I'm saying, it's satisfying, and they're able to, have that balance or whatever. And everybody has something different. Same way with like strippers or escorts or all sex work. I feel like it should be decriminalized, legalized, and regulated because, oh, that was what I was trying to get to, is that if we regulate this shit, just like with drugs, that decreases people's participation in it. One reason is that because it loses the allure. As far as like the quote unquote moral argument, where does it, get it, gray for me and shit? It's when so many other avenues for a person to make a living. Because it's like, yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's, people, all they want to do is sex work. But oftentimes, what it seems to me is that a lot of people who have to engage in sex work, it's because um, other doors have been shut. So as opposed to like going around and trying to say, you shouldn't be engaging in this, you shouldn't be doing this, I would much more try to understand why they get into this business, why they feel, saying that this is the way they have to make a living. Same thing with like porn, I'm saying, a lot of people, not everybody, plenty of people are there just to have fun or whatever. But some people are there because they're fairly dysfunctional in other types of career paths. It's cool, like, get your money any way you want. There's people who could be like, oh, you're this old and you're still trying to make money, what I'm saying, doing photo editing or doing like, you know, saying recording music and shit, or like do something more, you know, real. Do some data programming or some computer science type shit. You
Look,
know,
I don't knock anybody because you don't know what situation has put them in. Like you don't know why they're doing what they're doing, and you just don't know people's lives. You know, like if you want to be a sex worker, fine. If you were made to be a sex worker because you were trafficked,
oh no,
like
yeah,
that's fucking terrible.
right.
Which unfortunately is the truth for a lot of people.
Yes.
Maybe they're not so-called trafficked, but they're basically tricked into, it's
Hmm.
called trick for a reason. They're
Right.
tricked into doing it.
Yep.
Um,
Tiger King. those two
right.
straight, those two straight
They're,
dudes that.
a lot of these girls, they start when they're, fucking 13, 14. They
Hmm.
got this guy who's older and buys everything for them. All they
Hmm.
have to do is, it's like a little
Bust it
dick
open.
on
Yep.
Monday through Friday. You know what I mean? And
Yep.
they're like, oh, but Tyrone gets everything for me. He pays my bills. I have a cell phone. I have every purse, all the shoes, my hair's done, my nails done.
Good. I'm
It's like,
taken
yeah,
care of.
but like, how many dicks do you suck a week? You know what I mean? Like, it's not free. And you're paying for it, and more than just your body, you're paying for it. With your mind. A lot of these girls end up being traumatized, and it's not a safe profession. Um, which like I know, for example, like with Backpage, they're saying that
Hmm.
Backpage it was good and it was bad. It was bad because obviously it's facilitating prostitution and illegal activity, but it was good because it gave sex workers kind of a safe way to be able to do their work in a manner that they could coordinate, and there was a paper trail, like
Hmm. Call out
right,
bad Johns. Call out motherfuckers who are no good
exactly.
and shit. You know,
When
you
they
have
took
that network.
they took it down, they didn't have that network anymore.
Hmm.
I think they rebuilt it though, because I've been seeing like vans in the streets that say Backpage is back up.
There's
So I
probably
don't.
all
I
those.
never used it. I've never ever wanted to pay for pussy. That's never been me.
I mean, you
But
already
you know,
have.
if guys have done it, I don't knock them or whatever. That's just not my style.
I mean,
I
the
don't.
thing is, we already have. You always do. It's part of
You
the
pay for
stigma.
it in different
It's
ways. Yeah, you don't
exactly.
just say, "Here's $100." Get on your
Yeah.
knees.
Yeah. Like
You
I was
take
telling.
dinner first, and then you say, "Get on your knees."
Please. Yeah. Exactly.
Dating is a form of prostitution, also.
Yeah. So is
Yeah,
marriage and shit. And the thing is, once again, it's like
it's all
it's
the same shit. So, like, are we hypocrites for staring down at it? You know,
yes.
uh, you know, you know what I mean?
But we pretty much declared that prostitution should be decriminalized, legal, and everybody should get a voucher for the services, one free trial of services of their liking, just
They
to
should
break
get
it.
free. They should get free healthcare.
Yes, I agree.
They're doing the world a service.
Yes, absolutely. I
Whether
mean, seriously. I mean, and the thing is that like we see no problem in saying, "Oh, I'm just gonna go out and have a few drinks. I'm gonna go and put this poison in my body and feel good for a couple hours, and then maybe feel sick afterwards." It's like we have no problem with accepting that indulgence as a widespread cultural practice of just doing something very selfish. But then when it comes to anything type sex, like even though everybody masturbates, everybody watches porn, most people are trying to get laid. You know what I'm saying? That's something that is you can't even in the world of like stand-up comedy, there's a certain finesse you have to talk about it with because there's still a certain level of prudishness in people in general.